My name is Preston, given that today is 420, which is National Pot Smoking Day, whatever you want to call it. I'd like to address the issue of medical marijuana laws in America. My proposition is that medical marijuana should be legalized by our federal government for patients who actually need it. Now, according to a National Geographic documentary produced by Raymond Tellis entitled Marijuana Nation, an estimated 200 million people around the world smoke marijuana, and 2 million Californians alone will try it for the first time this year. Now, to get you a little bit familiar with what marijuana is, it's the budding flower that grows at the end of the leaves of a hemp plant known as cannabis, and these buds are filled with a substance known as THC, which is a psychoactive substance, makes you trip out, whatever. Now, the THC content in weed today could be up to about 20%, where in like the 1960s, about 3 or 4% for marijuana, for their THC content, and which means that our weed today is just way more potent than it used to be. Now, how does it work? Now, when it's smoked, marijuana enters the lungs, or enters the bloodstream through the capillaries in the lungs. Now, that blood rushes to the head where THC binds to the receptors. Now, some effects that you feel from this happening are like time seems to go by a little bit slower, there's an increase in the stimulation of your senses, and an increased euphoria. So pretty much it's hungry and happy and sleepy. But if you have negative or troubled mindset while you're smoking marijuana, it could lead to anxiousness, paranoia, abnormal heart rhythms. Not a very effective treatment that way, but although it's widely used, the U.S. federal government classifies marijuana as a Schedule I substance alongside with things such as cocaine and heroin. Now, it means you get the harshest drug penalties or law consequences for marijuana, just like heroin or whatever. So, but it can be used as a medical treatment. Now, medical marijuana is accepted as a treatment in other countries of the world already. In 2001, Canada became the first country to issue a nationwide law for the legalization of medical marijuana. And there are 13 states in America that has laws that makes medical marijuana legal. But it is ultimately illegal to grow or use or sell marijuana under federal law. So since federal law overrides state laws, pretty much all the state laws on medical marijuana is like a security blanket that doesn't really keep that secure because federal law says it's illegal either way. Now, California was the first state to pass medical marijuana laws in 1996, and we have nearly 300 medical marijuana dispensaries in California alone. But the DEA has the right to raid and shut down any of those medical marijuana dispensaries just due to federal law. So. In the National Geographic documentary that I quoted earlier, the intent of the bill for California was to relieve deathly ill patients, those suffering from advanced stages of HIV, AIDS, and cancer. Now, it can help a few other things, like besides those 3 large diseases that affect everybody, or not everybody, but everybody, a lot of people that have it, you know. So, in one instance, it's used to cure some symptoms of lymphoma, which by a victim named Robin Few, after she had chemotherapy, she stated that the use of medical marijuana makes her feel less needy for the other narcotics that she was given for her recovery. And her bronchiologist, Dr. Don Abrams, said that cannabis is the only drug that decreases nausea and vomiting and also increases appetite. Now, in another documentary, a Showtime documentary by producer Josh Kessler, entitled In Pot We Trust, they interview a patient named Jacqueline Patterson who was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And now cerebral palsy, it damages parts of your brain and it messes up your motor skills, and you can't, it makes it hard for somebody to just walk and maintain balance and just do things that anybody could really do. Now, Jacqueline, she acquired a terrible speech impediment from this, from cerebral palsy, and she pretty much, she smokes pot on camera, and she takes 2 hits of it, and all of a sudden she starts talking to the interviewer, and she has no speech impediment. Well, she has a little bit of it, but she's able to focus and talk in full sentences and whatnot, so it does release some of that. On another note, although it relieves a lot of disorders and diseases, it also could help our economy. In 2007, in Oakland alone, over $24 million was spent on purchasing medical marijuana, which means that if the federal law were to tax that, they can make nearly $3 million just in Oakland alone off taxes that we could use for our state and whatnot. So, in conclusion, medical marijuana should be legalized by our federal government because I think the pros outweigh the cons. Hopefully you guys do too.
All right, Preston, the proposition that you have is a policy claim, not a claim of fact. There's no setup of what the supporting structure is going to be, so you are just kind of meandering through a variety of topics, and sometimes they're not claims, they're just background information on the subject. Occasionally it sounds like you're summarizing what the content of the films were that you saw instead of making a claim. There's no, like I said, advancement of a series of inferences that would strengthen your claim of policy even. There's a lot of descriptive information in the first part of the speech about marijuana and the means by which it's consumed. What we need is more data, especially on the medical issues of its success or its ability to be used as treatment. The stronger evidence that you have on this point, you've got a couple of good examples that you point to. Although they are simple example evidence, it would be helpful to have some follow-up statistical data that showed that people on a more broad basis had some benefit from using marijuana. There's not much expert testimony cited on this. There is some factual data about the amount of people who use marijuana, about what the category is that marijuana is found in, about how much money is spent in Oakland on marijuana. I'm not even sure if that's medical marijuana. It might even have been medical marijuana. So there are a lot of sick people in Oakland, apparently. The sources all appear to be the two films that you make reference to, in particular the one that you start off with. The presentation is okay. The economic issue is kind of a sidetrack issue. I don't think it really develops very much. And your speech is too long. It's 5 minutes and 30 seconds, so it's about 1 minute and 10 seconds too long for the day. Wait, he can be funny and I can't? My joke's more sophisticated than that. Too long. It was 5 minutes and 30 seconds. It needed to be 1 minute and 10 seconds shorter. Criminy.